Hello and welcome. Today we have Dennis Siebrecht with us, who's the CTO of Freshmethod. Welcome, Dennis.
Thanks, Claire.
Thanks so much for joining us today. I know that we've just had a discussion about you meaning to have been in the Philippines right now, but obviously in Australia. So running offices in the Philippines from Australia is going to be challenging. How have you found COVID-19 and how it's, I suppose, affected you and your business managing your teams?
From our team perspective, as you just mentioned, we've got a team in the Philippines, and then we operate in Australia and also South Africa now. We've kind of been used to a remote environment, having multiple team members across the globe. We've had all of our technology already mostly cloud-based. It was more the impact to the team, personally, like the uncertainty that swept like the Philippines with the government rolling out changes in quarantine that happened just before Australia, and then here in Australia, and then obviously in South Africa. So that was our biggest challenge, just listening to our staff and their concerns. We operate a little different. We're actually a managed service provider for small, medium business in Australia for IT services. So what actually impacted us the most was the clients. They weren't ready. It felt like the calm before the storm. I think on the Monday after the government in Australia started mentioning restrictions were coming in, on the Monday it was very, very quiet. I think businesses were just like, well, what are we going to do? And then by the time it got to the Wednesday of that week in March, we got hammered. Our support cases coming into our system was up threefold. So we were drowning.
How did you cope with that? Obviously, because this is, you couldn't have planned for this event, obviously. Like, how did you cope with, the team that you have and its influx of support needed for the clients that you're working with to pretty much sort out everything from, I would take it from security to getting them remote, to giving them access. How did you guys cope with that? Did you have to, put a plan in place quite quickly? Did you have a process? Did you project manage it? How did it work?
So first of all, any sort of projects that we had on, we stopped. So onboarding projects or upgrade projects, we just paused that. Anyway, those clients wouldn't want that disruption happening. Rip that team into frontline support. So pretty much anyone who wasn't in frontline support got put into frontline support. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, in this scenario, the entire world was going through this. So people, understood that. They weren't expecting the world at that point. They understood every business was going through it at the same time. So people were very understanding. And you literally just work through it one by one. We had a mixed base. Like, you do have accounting firms that are full cloud. They're good to go. There's just a few little bits and bobs they need to iron out to get sorted. And then there's clients that just haven't had any remote setups before. So then you're kind of doing projects on the fly. So we literally just worked through it, and it was about a week, and then things started to come back to normal. We did have two waves. Like, there was that first wave of like pubs, clubs, those sort of businesses getting told they have to shut. Then it was more a slower wave of when like stage 2, I think, came in, where other professional services business opted to send people home, or medical businesses send. That was our second wave. Now, thankfully, in the second wave, a few of those businesses started planning a week beforehand.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's, that would have been a very challenging time. So what was that, like, all up a couple of weeks of constant?
Yeah, it was about 2 to 3 weeks. The one thing our team from the sales and marketing management team did to support that was, and a few other organizations started following suit like 2 days in, was pumping out like security policy documents for clients, and also work health safety policy documents. We like pump that out to all of our clients here, get the staff to sign this, making sure, no one can see their screen, things like that from a security and IT point of view. Or if they took company hardware home, that they took care of it and that sort of stuff. And then there's fire exits, that sort of thing. One of the other things we jumped on pretty quickly, and I personally did for a lot of our clients, is start reviewing security policies. Insurance policies for cyber insurance, which has become a huge thing in our industry in the last 24 months. So I was reviewing security PDS documents for 3 days. And a lot of organizations, you know, they sign these insurance policies and they haven't read the PDS. For instance, like if you're an accounting firm or another business that has staff in the Philippines, will your cybersecurity insurance policy cover you if that worker's computer at home in the Philippines got hacked and there was a data breach, and now you've got a data breach thing with the Australian government? You know, things like that, making sure it's got worldwide coverage. But another thing that gets looked over is there's sometimes little terms to do with like how often you're changing passwords and work from home. So just checking off those little balances, because in a mad rush scenario like a pandemic, some of the security and things that would normally go into planning such a work from home scenario just go out the window. People just rush home with the laptop or whatever and connect it to an unsecured network.
That's good to know.
And yeah, and you probably would have seen on the news, and it was even on Channel 7 here, that within 2 days, the ransomware groups around the world were already sending fake emails disguised as the WHO, purposely feeding on people's curiosity of what was going on. It's brilliant. These guys are brilliant, the way they do it. And
Scary.
I just read this morning they are now sending fake text messages to sign up to that new COVID app the government's released. But if you click it, it's going to put something malicious on your computer or on your mobile phone. So they're thinking ahead, and and when people are scrambling like this, you've got to be thinking like that.
Yeah.
So we're trying to educate the clients to be very careful of that sort of stuff, because now's the time that these threats in the IT space that are coming out.
Yeah, goodness. So with like that sort of thing that you've heard about in terms of the COVID-19 app and you know, the ransomware, is that something that you kind of, as soon as you find out about that sort of thing, you send that out to your clients and make them aware that this is going on at the moment, to keep them updated?
Yes. So we got an email campaign out like, please look at this. If you get anything that says that, you know, let the staff know. It was actually good. Normally this stuff doesn't hit like, you know, the nightly news, like this sort of stuff. But in this scenario it did. So I think that straight away warned a lot of people for us just to be careful.
That's good. That's excellent. So once you kind of spent the 2 to 3 weeks getting everyone sorted and all your clients sorted, what was kind of next steps for you guys? I mean, what are you doing at the moment in terms of, you know, working with your clients? Where are a lot of the question and support needed, and what is your kind of future plans over the next few months?
Yeah, well, what's interesting is with our clients, a lot of them are starting to question, do we need an office? Like, how can we go more cloud and all the rest of it and get rid of the, you know, their on-premise server or whatever they've got on-premise? So I've been having a lot of those conversations of how people can utilize Office 365 more, move their file server, and just work through their applications at an icon by icon level. The other interesting thing that's been coming up, and this is what we could be seeing, like not even just in IT, but across the business world, is this could be the Uber moment of the modern workplace. You know, for instance, a client just yesterday said, hey, we were just recently looking at before this of moving offices to support up to 40 staff. But now I'm thinking, well, we've got an office that can support 30. Why don't we have like a hybrid hot desk environment where, you know, we only ever have 30 in the office and we collaborate? So they're the sort of conversations we're starting to see now. The dust is settling. We do work heavy in the accounting space, so they're still very much under the pump with the ATO just released a new MyGov ID thing right at the end of March.
Yes,
and now
I had to do that too.
they're very busy with you know, now the workkeeper payment stuff and trying to do that sort of thing.
And year end coming up as well.
Correct. But we've kind of been thinking about remote work for quite a while. Like, do we really need offices and all the rest of it? So there is a book that was written, I read quite a few years ago, which is now like perfect for this event. It's actually called Remote Office Not Required. And it was written by the founders of a software platform called Basecamp, and they developed their whole software with devs all across the world. Now, the reason for that was a bit different today. Today, it's like there's a pandemic, we all need to work. They'd more taken the approach that we want the best developers in the world, but if we have an office in Brisbane, we're only going to be able to cast that net to whatever developers live within 20 kilometers of Brisbane. So that was their mentality. But the book kind of talks about all the challenges, and that's the challenges businesses are going through right now. And probably the other challenge we're having right now that the dust settled, which is more the staff and how they're feeling cabin feverish, stuck at home, that sort of thing. So, we're trying to keep up the virtual water cooler with the team each day. So even though we have our daily huddles that most companies have, we're trying to have a bit more of an impromptu one in the late afternoons, which is more like what you'd talk about over lunch with colleagues at the office.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good. And it's interesting. I had a colleague say to me, and an ex-colleague had said in the past, that there's certain people that can work from home every single day and it's not a problem. They don't need, teams and groups around, and they can work within those. And then there's certain people that actually need to be in that team environment to be motivated, not necessarily motivated, but to really enjoy what they're doing. And it's been very interesting going through this process and seeing kind of which team members are more like that versus, which ones are saying, can we come back to the office? And which ones are like, no, I'd actually prefer to stay at home. And not everyone is the same. I think a lot of people would assume everyone's going to be working from home, but that's not the case. Not everyone wants to do that,
Yeah.
So
even
really
myself personally, I sometimes you want that human interaction, or you just need a different environment.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So future for you guys at the moment, so obviously you're still busy servicing your clients, a lot of remote workers now, a lot of security to look after. Are you busy concentrating on projects at the moment while you've got this time?
Yeah, so we're actually talking to quite a few prospective clients right now that are looking at like, hey, we want to look at the remote scenario. How can we move to that scenario? What do we need from an infrastructure point of view to do that? And then obviously with the business impact that's happening, people are also looking at that from a cost perspective. Like what's the cost of running that server versus, moving that to a different workload in the cloud. So that's what's going on a lot right now. And obviously with, the revenue losses that's happening across certain industries, there's a flow-on effect. So, the accounting firms that would be supporting hospitality businesses, it's flowing on from there. Okay. From the team point of view, we're very stable now. We've kind of gotten through those bumps and the anxiety's kind of passed. I think generally everyone's kind of settled into the new normal, it feels like. And then, just like every other business right now, I think we're just waiting on that news coming from the governments. Yeah.
I think everyone's a little bit tired of limbo and just wants, whether it's a decision of, things are going to start changing in, 2 weeks, or whether it's in 6 months, everyone just wants some sort of timeline just so they can work towards. But I don't think we're going to get that for at least a couple of months. So we'll have to see what happens. So in terms of a, golden nugget or a takeaway from this, I mean, what can you say to other IT leaders in terms of, what they can take away from our conversation today?
I guess for me on our journey is really like looking at the remote option and what can be put in place to have a team work remotely on a more full-time basis, or at least a part-time basis. That could open up IT companies or even other businesses to like I was mentioning from that book, their goal was to try and find the best talent globally. So it also opens up that availability. The other thing with it is potentially from some of our clients, they're actually saying they're getting increased productivity. So that is another thing to consider. So my takeaway would be like looking at this event from, is this going to change the way you operate long term, or is this just a short term 2-month thing? That's how we're looking at it, and that's how I think other businesses should look at it. As the nugget, there's actually a conference for this actual topic that I've attended the last 2 years. And it's actually just called Running Remote. Runningremote.com is the site. And funnily enough, a lot of big businesses attend that. Last year, one of the guest speakers was GitHub. And at the time, though, GitHub had just been purchased by Microsoft. So the lady speaking wasn't sure if Microsoft was going to try and go, hey, no, you need to work in an office now. But GitHub was working primarily remote team across America last year. So that conference is obviously going to get a huge boost this year with what's just happened. That just pushes the message they've been pushing. Well, that's funny because they used to actually always run it in person in Bali as kind of like a retreat holiday thing as well, because conferences are fun like that. I did see an email out that they were looking at doing it virtual, but I did look at it today, and I think they're now looking at running it somewhere in America. But some interesting speakers for some big companies setting up remote teams.
That's good. We'll definitely have a look at that. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Dennis. And we'll get in touch in the next couple of months and see where Freshmethod's at and where you guys are at. And we'll definitely keep in touch.
Great. Well, thanks for having me.
Cheers.